What's up, love? Welcome back to Love Stands Here, where I'm encouraging you to heal, to live holistically, to live with love, to learn to love others better through your relationship with Jesus, and of course, to understand that your worth is in the Word and not in the world. I'm Megan Brianna. Welcome back. And if you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of these Thursday videos. I've got my pup here who is just dying for attention today. She doesn't like it when I talk to other people sometimes, huh? You can see her tail in the mirror. Today, I want to share something that has been on my heart for the last week because it's something that I've struggled with really for the first time this deeply since I started on this journey with God. And I want to ask you, am I the only one that can't hear God all the time? I know I'm not. I know I'm not. This is a thing that we deal with as Christians, and I think it's something that's really important to talk about. You know, of course, the enemy is out there, and a lot of times we have to fight really, really hard to stay connected to our Christianity. And so I'll just share with you this past weekend at the end of a long week, I got to the point for the first time on this journey where I was like, dude, I give up. And for the first time in at least a year and a half, I thought to myself, I kind of just want to go get drunk tonight. And mind you, this is something that I used to do in my past life, something that I used to do when I just kind of wanted to unwind or I was overwhelmed by life. Like, my first thought was, let's just go get drunk, you know? And I don't do that anymore. Like, I don't drink really. Every once in a while, on a special occasion, I'll have a beer or a drink or whatever, but it really doesn't make me feel good, so I don't do it, and I have better things to do. Not that it's a bad thing to have a drink at all, but just that I really want to go get drunk because I'm dealing with something uncomfortable in my life. That's where we have to start paying attention. So that was the first time in a long time I've experienced that. And also thinking, I really don't want to go to church tomorrow. Like, I just don't even care. I'm just going to stay home. And it was because I think I've felt lately like I haven't been hearing from God, or I'm not as connected to God the past 1 or 2 weeks. And I also am in this place where I'm having a really hard time not feeling lonely, you know, and this is one of the reasons that it's so important to have community, to be a part of a church, and to have fellowship with other Christians, because it can get really lonely when you're living in a world where a lot of people don't have the same beliefs and values that you do. So when, you know, it's great to be in that space, but then when you go out into the world and you're surrounded by people who might not really understand the lifestyle that you live, it can get really lonely. And most of the time, you know, as long as you hold on to that mustard seed sized faith, you can get through it. But sometimes it just gets really overwhelming and you feel like you're just getting really beat down by the enemy. And your mind starts going crazy. The voices in your head start telling you that you're not worthy and you're lonely and you're doing things wrong, and everybody in your life, it feels like everybody is just being obnoxious. And like, seriously, it kind of gets to that point. I'm struggling a little bit with pride right now. I was talking to my friend about this, where when I was younger, you know, I knew that I felt differently about things than what the world teaches us. But instead of embracing that, like I've said before, I shoved it down and I tried to be like the world because I thought I was doing something wrong. Now I'm in a place where I'm embracing it, and it's kind of almost like I'm learning how to do it from a place of humility, because I think that I'm allowing it to honestly make me feel holier than thou, and I don't want to do that. Like, that is not what I want to do. I want to be humble. I want to be able to love everybody where they are. I don't want to be judgmental. I certainly don't want to hold people up on pedestals and have expectations for other people like I used to. That was part of my codependency. So clearly there's still some stuff that I have to work through. So if any of that sounds familiar to you, let me know in the comments. So I know I'm not the only one, but you know, just being vulnerable here as I am. We all struggle, we're all human. but that is where I've been this last week. And Saturday, I got kind of overwhelmed, I guess, feeling like I was the only one in my space, in my life, other than at church, that feels the way I do about things. And I think it was easier for me to fall back on, well, I'm just gonna give in to the world, because at least then I won't feel so lonely. And good news, I didn't do that. I came home and I read some of my Bible plans, and I worked on my website and cried a little bit. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're in a challenging season right now, if you're in a place where you feel like you can't hear God and it's really making you feel resistant to having a relationship with Him or doing life the Christian way, I just want to encourage you to continue to hold on to that little bitty piece of faith, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how resistant you are. Just hold on to that small amount of faith and you will get through it. Sunday did not want to go to church. I was crying the entire way there, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go get coffee instead of going to church. And I cried and I didn't want to go, but I talked to God the entire way there, and I was mad at Him and I felt resentful, and I was talking to Him like, why do I feel like you're not around? Why do I feel like you've left me? As if, it's so crazy to perspective, as if my life is so difficult. But sometimes inside, the battle we fight inside of ourselves gets really overwhelming, and it's relative. Don't judge people for if their lives on the outside look great and they're blessed. Of course, it's important that they know that, they pay attention to that, but also don't judge them, because you don't know what's going on within them, and it can be a huge, huge battle. Anyway, so I was dealing with that, and then I ended up going to church, and it was exactly what I needed. The sermon was what I needed. Being in that space around those people, in fellowship with the people that I care about so much, was exactly what I needed, and it ended up turning everything around. But I know it's really, really hard to get to that point. So I just kind of want to say that if you are struggling and you're trying to come back to God, and you're trying to remember that He's always with you no matter what, the process of that doesn't have to be graceful. I don't know, like, I did it, I was crying, and I felt like I was kind of throwing a mini adult temper tantrum, but of course I was just doing it in my car by myself with God. But sometimes you need to do that. And that's also a matter of releasing emotion. If you have that emotion built up inside you, it's got to come out one way or another. And I think one of the healthiest ways to do it is to yell at God. I really do. Like, if you're angry, if you feel resentful, if you're mad at Him, yell at Him, because at least you're talking to Him, and He's going to hear you. And it is going to help, because you're getting it out. If you need to cry, my grandmother always said, crying is like taking your heart out to the cleaners. Then cry, scream, do what you need to do. But try to do that and keep it between you and God, and keep it between you and, other believers, rather than turning towards something of the world that is going to pull you further away from that connection. Because when you're in that space, when you feel disconnected, it's our natural humanity to want to disconnect even more, but that's the very last thing you want to do. Just keep trying. There is just one Bible verse that I want to share with you today. It is Isaiah 30:21, and this is NIV, as always. So it says, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. I think this is really powerful, and it brings up something that I didn't even think about until I read it, which is the fact that I think sometimes when we feel disconnected from God, it's because we're walking in front of Him. We're trying too hard to control things on our own. And so when we feel like we're not hearing from Him, sometimes it's because, I believe this, most of the time we have to draw strength from God, most of the time. those holes that we have, those places that we feel like we're not strong enough to deal with whatever's going on in our life. We have to ask God for his strength. But sometimes I think he backs off. He's always doing his work. He's always working in our lives. But sometimes I think he backs off and lets us do our own thing because he knows that we're on a good path. And that also means that we don't hear from him as much. I mean, for example, when I was going through the darkest time in my life, that first year and a half when I was in really deep healing, I heard from him all the time. And sometimes I wonder if that's one of the reasons that I fall back into this whole, well, I'm just going to go sin again, because I know that the pain that will come from that might make me feel closer to God. And how kind of backwards is that? But I think that's kind of just a psychological human thing, subconscious. So I believe that that's what happens. Sometimes he just backs off a little bit because he trusts that we're on the right path, and he knows that what we're doing right now, we can do in our own strength. But also, I think sometimes we try too hard to do something in our own strength, and we don't have a lot of patience, so we push forward way past where we're supposed to be. And so I think it's really beautiful in this passage that it says, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. As if maybe we've moved too far ahead. Maybe we've run too far ahead of God, and in order to get back to him, we have to turn our head and listen to him behind us, telling us, come back, this is the way. I just thought that was really beautiful. It just hit me in the right spot. It just felt like something that I needed to share. So if you are going through a season like this right now, it could be either that what you're doing, that you're on the right path and you don't need God as much, but you have to have faith that he is still working in your life, because he is. Always, always, always. He's always working in your life. Or maybe take inventory and be a little mindful and slow down and see if you are taking time to spend with God and you are taking time to slow down, or if maybe you're speeding ahead because you feel like things aren't working out in the time frame that you expected them to, or you feel like you need to have more control over what's going on in your life than you actually do. But no matter what, again, I will say it again, over and over and over again, God is working in your life. And the process, especially when you're going through resistance, it doesn't have to be graceful. You're allowed to have adult temper tantrums when it's between you and God. Just make sure that you are keeping it between you and God. Or you have a safe space that you can go to, preferably with a believer, where you can talk it out and be angry and let them help you get through it in a way that is in alignment with your Christian values. Because, you don't want to go looking for help from people that don't have the same values or beliefs that you do. Because then their advice is going to come from a completely different perspective, and it might be exactly the opposite of what you want to hear. So you don't have to be perfect all the time. You don't have to constantly have the most amazing faith, or, if you are struggling, it doesn't mean you're a bad Christian. It just means you have to throw a little temper tantrum every once in a while, but push through the resistance, because God is always there, and he will find you on the other side, and he will take your hand and remind you that this is the right way. And then once you push through that resistance, it will just be another experience that makes you that much stronger in Christ. So that's what I have for you today. A little bit shorter than normal, but hopefully it encouraged you. Thank you as always for watching. Don't forget to subscribe again so you don't miss any of these videos. And also don't forget to go to lovestandshere.com. Both the blog and the podcast are up, so if you would rather read or listen, go check those out. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Love ya!